In the dead of night, the peaceful silence is shattered by harrowing screams and relentless howls. You awaken to the chaos, finding yourself surrounded by shadowed figures, their outlines barely visible in the darkness. Your mind races, heart pounding as you recognize them. Apache warriors, known across the desert lands for their brutal tactics and almost otherworldly stealth. It's as if they have risen from the earth itself, appearing without warning. You've heard of their lightning-fast movements and mastery of horseback riding, of their ability to seemingly vanish without a trace. But perhaps the most terrifying stories you've heard are of what awaits those unfortunate enough to be taken captive. Now surrounded with no means of escape, you realize that those horror stories may soon become your reality across the centuries. Stories of Apache treatment of captives have instilled fear in anyone encroaching upon their territory. For the Apache, the fate of captives wasn't determined by random cruelty. It was rooted deeply in tradition, warfare, and the spiritual beliefs of a people who had lived in harmony with their land for thousands of years. Today on History on Fleek, we explore the complex, sometimes dark, aspects of Apache customs surrounding captives, from adoption to assimilation to unimaginable forms of punishment. The Apache, a people with a deep cultural legacy, stretching back into the ancient Southwest and northern Mexico, have often been misunderstood by history. Their harsh treatment of captives was not an isolated phenomenon, but a practice that served many purposes, including revenge, spiritual symbolism, and the assertion of power in the face of foreign intrusion. The Apache homeland is thought to have originally spanned what is now the southwestern United States and parts of Mexico. They lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers, thriving in the harsh desert environment, and over time, they became adept at cultivating crops such as corn, beans, and squash. Their social structure was complex, with different bands and sub-tribes, each led by its own chiefs and governed by distinct customs. By the time Europeans first encountered the Apache in the 16th century, the Spanish explorers described them as Apache of the South and Apache of the Interior, to distinguish the two dominant regional groups. Fiercely independent, the Apache were known for their adaptability. They were expert hunters-gatherers, and later skilled farmers who cultivated small plots in the desert soil. Apache women played vital roles, taking charge of gathering and preparing food, constructing homes, and teaching their children about plants and medicines. Essential for survival, the Apache were fiercely protective of their territories, and every aspect of their lives, from their agriculture to their warfare, was tailored to preserve their people and culture against the threats posed by rivals, including other native tribes and eventually European settlers. One key factor that set the Apache apart from many other Native American tribes was their incredible horsemanship. While horses were introduced to the Americas by the Spanish, the Apache quickly became adept at using these animals to their advantage. They became legendary warriors, mastering both mounted combat and guerrilla tactics, which allowed them to evade and resist foreign enemies for much longer than most other tribes. Their knowledge of the land, combined with their highly skilled and coordinated attacks, made them almost impossible to conquer. The Apache employed hit-and-run tactics, ambushing enemy forces and then disappearing into the desert's labyrinthine trails and rocky outcrops. These skills turned them into one of the most resilient and feared groups in North America, outlasting many tribes and European settlers. In their quest to hold on to their homelands, the Apache's worldview was steeped in spirituality. They believed in a wide array of spirits and deities that inhabited nature, and the spiritual framework informed many of their practices, including their treatment of captives. For the Apache, life was a balance of opposing forces, and warfare was as much a spiritual act as it was a means of survival. Capturing and punishing enemies could have deep spiritual significance, particularly when it came to dealing with rival tribes or foreign intruders who had violated their sacred lands. While the treatment of captives varied significantly from tribe to tribe across North America, the Apache had established customs and practices specifically for captives long before the Europeans arrived. In some cases, captives, especially women and children, were integrated into Apache society, taught Apache customs, and sometimes even married into the tribe. The practice of adoption was common, and it served not only as a method of increasing the tribe's numbers, but also as a way to preserve Apache culture. By adopting captives and renaming them after deceased members, the Apache could honor their dead while gaining new members to strengthen the tribe. This practice of adopting captives, particularly children and young women, was not just an act of mercy. It was a strategic decision that helped to sustain the tribe through times of war and loss. For the Apache, it was essential to replace those who had fallen in battle, and adoption allowed them to preserve their way of life in a changing world. However, while this assimilation was viewed as a way to honor both the deceased and the newly adopted individual, it was also a form of domination. The adopted captive would lose their previous identity, fully absorbing the Apache way of life and often forgetting their past. Yet the fate of captives was not always one of assimilation or adoption for adult men, particularly warriors from rival tribes or European settlers. Captivity often led to brutal consequences. Across Native American tribes, treatment of captives was largely symbolic, with different practices rooted in cultural beliefs. Many Native American tribes saw captives as an opportunity to assert strength and protect their community through a display of dominance. Among the Apache, especially during times of war with Europeans, captivity was often a means of exacting revenge and issuing a powerful statement of resistance. The Apache developed intricate methods of punishment and torture, particularly when dealing with those they viewed as threatening outsiders. Punishment was not only meant to kill, but to break the spirit, to extend suffering, so that the captive would experience the power and control of the Apache firsthand. The methods were designed to maximize pain and humiliation, and many captives met their fate in public displays, intended to reinforce the tribe's authority and cohesion. The Apache believed that inflicting punishment on captives in such a manner would bring honor to the tribe and send a clear message to any who dared challenge their strength. The theme of ritualized punishment extended throughout Apache practices, where the physical suffering of captives held symbolic significance. In a demonstration of resilience and bravery, captured warriors would be expected to sing death songs, a tradition in which the captive would sing of their accomplishments and boast of their strength in the face of death. For the Apache, this final act of defiance by a captive was a powerful testament to the human spirit, showing that even in the face of death, a warrior could assert their identity and courage. This act would earn the captive a degree of respect, even as they faced a painful end. One of the most infamous Apache leaders associated with resistance was Geronimo, whose name would become synonymous with the Apaches' fight for freedom. Translating to the one who yawns, Geronimo was anything but passive. After his family was killed in the 1851 massacre at Los Banos by Mexican soldiers, Geronimo's life became consumed by a quest for revenge. His raids and attacks on both Mexican and U.S. forces became legendary, showcasing his unbreakable spirit and tactical brilliance. Geronimo led the Apache in the Apache Wars, a series of conflicts between the Apache and U.S. forces that stretched from 1849 to 1924, sparked in part by the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which had forcibly displaced Native American tribes from their ancestral lands. Geronimo's tactics were nothing short of remarkable. His reputation for bravery and defiance earned him legendary status among his people. He managed to escape confinement several times, leading his followers back into the wilderness, where they continued to resist. His final capture in 1886 marked the end of the Apache Wars, but his legacy lived on. Geronimo's life took a surprising turn. After his capture, he was displayed as a kind of celebrity at fairs and exhibitions, even appearing at President Theodore Roosevelt's second inauguration parade in 1905. Until his death in 199, Geronimo remained a symbol of Apache resistance and resilience. His story, a testament to the Apache's unyielding fight for freedom. The Apache were not alone in their use of ritualized punishment. This practice was common among many Native American tribes during the American Indian Wars. For the Apache, punishments were highly structured, often beginning with mild pain and escalating over time to maximize suffering. Captives might be burned one coal at a time rather than set ablaze all at once, their bodies subjected to slow, deliberate agony. These methods were designed not only to punish, but to instill terror and discourage further encroachment by enemies. Captors would sometimes revive fainted captives, offering water or food to prolong the ordeal and intensify the suffering. The Apache's approach to punishment was methodical. Often captors would start with minimal physical harm, inflicting pain on limbs before moving to more sensitive areas, prolonging the suffering for days or even weeks. For the Apache, the suffering of captives was a way to achieve spiritual balance, as they believed that such acts could appease their gods and secure victory in future conflicts. Additionally, the tribe's members, from children to elders, would participate or observe these punishments, reinforcing the unity and strength of the tribe. In the face of their enemies, ritualized punishment held spiritual significance, seen not as a mere act of cruelty, but as an offering to the spirits that guided the Apache in times of war. In many cases, these punishments involved the sacrifice of captives to ensure success and protection for the tribe. For the Apache, this brutal treatment was a necessary evil in their battle for survival. It was a reminder of their unwavering spirit, resilience, and the lengths to which they would go to protect their land and their way of life. As we unravel these haunting and complex histories, we begin to see that the Apache were not merely warriors, but protectors of their culture. Their methods, though harsh, were woven into their worldviews and shaped by a struggle against forces that sought to erase their existence. Today, the legacy of the Apache continues to resonate, a symbol of resilience and defiance against seemingly insurmountable odds. The Apache's tale of courage and survival echoes through history, reminding us of the sacrifices made to preserve identity and freedom. Stay tuned for more as we continue to unearth the powerful, often challenging truths of American history.